All right. Welcome back, Mike Harris. Always a
Well, it's
pleasure.
good to see you, Kayvon. How you been, brother?
Yeah, great. Cheers to you, Mike. Hope you're well because we had a cold the last 2 weeks. It's the lack of sunshine is very, very detrimental to our health.
Which is why I supplement in the wintertime. I double my vitamin D3 in order to hope to fend off colds and flu and the like, because you don't get colds and flu in the summer very often. It just doesn't happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we do supplement too, but I'm thinking, sometimes I'm like, we should just seasonally, I mean, if we had the luxury of freedom, to just go somewhere where it's warm and sunny, even, the whole supplemental thing is not really helpful. I mean, we do, take all kinds of things, D3, K2, zinc, vitamin C, everything. I mean, the whole, spectrum.
Yeah, I know. If our food was healthier, we wouldn't have to do that either.
Thank you. Yeah.
But they have stripped many of the nutrients out of the food, it
Exactly.
seems, and this is the failure of industrial farming.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I think we need to go back to the more fundamental ways of doing things with natural fertilizers,
Yeah.
manure and compost and other things along those lines, and abandon this chemical nightmare. And the other thing, people don't realize this, but I'll go ahead and say it, is that they may get higher yield short term by using herbicides and pesticides on the crops. But what this does to the value of the soil beneath the surface, these things are killing the biome, 8, 10, 12 feet underground. I mean, they're killing off the fungus, the earthworms, the bacteria, everything that lives down there that needs, the that enables the process of making dirt into dirt, making soil into soil. And this is something that Monsanto and now Bayer have done, and they're relentless about it. And we as a people really need to reverse that trend and stop buying products that are made this way. It's just short of manufacturing is what it is, because it's really not just destroying um, the air, the water, all that stuff. This is destroying the soil itself, and we cannot tolerate this. How we let ourselves get here. I mean, I can see the farmers. They're promised by the salesman, "Oh, your yields are increased." Okay, they will increase short term. Maybe 20, 30 years, 50 years tops. But 100 years from now, what's the soil going to be like? You're going to be utterly dependent on the chemical companies to grow anything. And
Exactly. Yes.
I think that's sort of the game plan, and it drives people away from those type of foods, and we as intelligent people who can read and understand and learn about these things, we have to abandon practices that are not good for our long-term health. And so that's just as simple as it gets.
Exactly, yeah. And we got to help ourselves. I mean, we're going to get some chicken in summer. I mean, starting with the eggs, it's just where where the eggs coming from. But you're totally right. I mean, I mean, it's been going on for such a long time, Mike. The depletion of the soil. I mean, look at the people like, I don't know, whatever, half a century ago. They all look healthy, skinny, athletic. Their skin, everything. They look so they just shine through every every cell. And yeah, I mean, and even when you go shopping like organic, you can't even rely on that certification. I mean,
No, no, you can't. That's why anything I buy, whether it's organic or regular, produce, whatever, I bring it home, and I soak it in a mixture of baking soda and water to get anything that's on there off of it. I rinse it thoroughly. But you just touched on an interesting point. You said you were going to get some chickens, but then when you go to buy chicken feed or cattle feed or any feed that's commercially made, they've got other ingredients in there. I mean, people don't understand this. And when you purchase cattle feed, you're buying the parts of the cow that was butchered a year ago, that was reprocessed and turned into a powder that's mixed in with the grain that the cow's eating. Well, last I checked, cows were strict herbivores and they didn't eat other animal products. They didn't eat other animals at all. But yet, our industrial farming, our industrial ranching, is feeding them products that are turning the cattle into cannibals, eating their own kind. This is not healthy. That this is not how the universe is meant to work. You can't take an herbivore like a cow or a sheep or a chicken. Well, chickens are omnivores, but you can't take them and feed them their own kind. It's just not right. It's just it unbalances things, and no one sees the short-term effects, but everyone will see the long-term effects.
Yeah. I mean, solution-wise, like we gotta. I don't know. I see no other solution than, of course, besides now starting with ourselves, with buying local, regional, and maybe getting together with like-minded people who have the same values, who maybe form a sort of a loosened community, but with the same values, with whatever that is, health, nutrition, sustainability, protection, in case of pole shift. So anyway, it's a totally different chapter. So
in case pole shift, the occasional pole shift intrudes. Well, but that's the thing. I mean, I look at our world, and I look at what's going on globally, and I look at the unsettledness. I mean, the unrest in China right now, where they're purging their military. There's a talk of a coup going on against Xi. I look at the divisions within the U.S. between these lunatics in Minneapolis who are protecting the illegal aliens who do not belong here. Who, I look at what's going on in Europe. I look at the unrest around the world. It's virtually universal. Nearly every country is having some problems here. And is this just the zeitgeist of the time, or what is causing this? That's just a puzzlement for me.
Mm. Mike, I mean, I'm still hoping to sit together with you, and that would be a really overdue conversation with you and Simon Dixon. I mean, I don't know. Have you had a chance to listen to any of Simon Dixon?
I looked him up after you sent me that note. So
what do you think about him? I mean, his whole thesis, I mean, his bigger picture thesis, like, financial industrial complex, military industrial complex, technological industrial complex, and who is subordinate to what. He's also he's got a very interesting analysis. He says that the helicopter crash, who was it, Risey in the helicopter, like when was that, a couple of years ago, and he says that it was an inside job by the Iranian regime, or IRGC or whatever, to purge of the the so-called hardliners within the regime. I don't know what to think about that, but it would make sense. The whole circumstantial evidence around the helicopter crash, it's very, very suspicious, one way or another. At first I thought, okay, was it Mossad or some kind of multi-intelligence operation, PSYOP or whatever? But okay, so what do you think in general? I mean,
let's back up a moment, because we are talking about, is there a military complex? Is there a pharmaceutical complex? Is there an agricultural complex? Banking? Yes, all of these things exist. Do they? And I believe they exist as parallel silos, covering each sector of the economy that they embrace. The question is what does it look like at the top? Are they? And it's becoming more and more apparent through companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, that they're all coordinated at the top by these large money management firms. If you look at those three, investment firms of BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they have equity interest in virtually every publicly traded company on the planet. And sometimes just having a board seat alone gives them tremendous influence. And we wonder why companies like Budweiser or Target embrace this gay and homosexual and transsexual agenda. It's because their CEO has been told to by their board of directors, which is dominated by these investment houses. Who runs the investment houses? It comes back to our old friends. I mean, it would be nice to get on a broadcast like this and say it wasn't the Jews this time. I would really like to say that, but every time I look into these things and investigate, you can always find a Jew someplace involved at the highest levels that dictates these policies that are counter to everything that is human. I mean, it's everybody, even the homosexuals, know that they're not normal. They deal with this their whole lives. That's why they hide it. That's because they know that they don't fit in. They know it, but yet all these things are forced upon us as if they're, as normal as the sun coming up in the east, and they are not. These are anomalies within the experience. So,
in that context, again, which a lot of people even asking themselves, what is the role of Putin? Is he, at the end of the day, I mean, we know he's conservative in his values. He really does, protect. It seems to me, the values, the fundamental social, human, all kinds of values of the Russian population. But at the end of the day, is he being controlled or not? I mean, is there a control structure behind him, or is it just I don't know, is it a facade or?
Well, let me just say this. First of all, I don't know what I don't know. Okay, so this is going to be just my best silly wild ass guess. Okay, so I look at Putin, and for 75, almost 80 years, the Soviet Union was controlled by the Bolshevik Jews. Okay. They may have collapsed their system, their economic system, their system of control. However, they're still there. They still aggregated great wealth. Their business model of coming into a country, killing the people, and stealing everything of value is what they did to Russia and the other Soviet countries. And they amass great wealth, great fortunes by murdering people and stealing their property. So Putin still has these wealthy Jew oligarchs within Russia that he has to survive through. He has to deal with them. He has to make sure that they don't assassinate him. They don't depose him. He's got to deal with that. I mean, we saw what happened when our former president, John F. Kennedy, bucked him and tried to get rid of the Federal Reserve, tried to force Israel to just shut down their nuclear program, a number of things that led to his murder. But we see what happens to anyone who openly opposes the Jews, particularly if they have political power. They're summary execution, essentially. The Jews just don't put up with it. And until we have a leadership class and an awakened citizenry, awaken people around the world to where we say, we're not going to let you murder our people anymore, and start going out and pushing back on them in the same way that they do to others. That is the key. That is the linchpin. The rest of the world has to use the Jewish rule book against them. And the Jewish rule book is there are no rules. We can do whatever we want that promotes us, our people, our prosperity, our well-being. And so that set of rules needs to apply to us, and we have to view them as being an adversary and a competitor for who's going to exercise control over this world, this country, this planet. So,
going back to Simon Dixon, just to round it up. I mean, I told him that directly. I said, "Listen, Simon, this is you've always done a brilliant analysis, and." Based on facts, on data, on the numbers, because he used to work in the financial industrial complex. He in the investment section. He's a Bitcoiner, of course. So to me, I mean, he makes a totally authentic and trustworthy impression. But still, I did tell him that I think that he's got some blind spots, like anybody else. Like I do myself too. But at least I'm willing to admit that I have my blind spots. Okay, but it takes some, I don't know, self-reflection, self-analysis to say, okay, yes, it makes great sense, to talk about financial industrial, military industrial, who is subordinate to what, follow the money principle. That's his main thesis, follow principle, always correct, to a certain degree. But then, that somewhere it stops, and I'm like, why? That's why I wanted you to have on with him together in a conversation. I'm not giving up my hopes, but I think it's overdue, and to make him aware maybe of the possibility of those blind spots, whatever in comprehension.
Well, about blind spots, we all have them, and sometimes we don't articulate the fact that we have them, but we all do. And, I go on podcasts like this and I get feedback and stuff, and I'll give a point of view and someone will criticize the point of view. And I welcome the criticism because it helps me become better. It helps me become more informed if I research something that I hadn't considered before. So one of the things that I do now when I'm in any kind of a planning meeting for anything at all, the last thing I always say is, okay, what have we missed? What have we overlooked? And if you have a blind spot, you can overlook something that may be glaring to someone else, but you don't see it. And so these are things that all of us have to do. And like you said, it's self-examination. It's finding out, where am I deficient? What have I overlooked? What am I missing? And these are questions that every human being should ask themselves if they're going to really live a life of self-examination and reflection. You'll be a healthier, happier person for doing it.
Now, talking about Iran, Mike. I mean, Simon. Just to conclude this thought process, he says that the Third World War or a bigger, Middle Eastern war is not a thing it's not possible. He says a lot of things have already been sort of pre-arranged. It's a lot of theater. Even the last 12-day war between Iran and Israel was just more or less a theater, just a posturing, pre-announcing, who attacks who, the damages. And so he's saying that potentially this thing that's been unfolding now, in the whatever Persian Gulf or Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz, or this whole military buildup in around Iran with Israel and United States is most of it is just theater, and everything has been already predetermined because of the financial industrial complex and the GCC, who have already bought themselves the seats on the board of whatever BlackRock and other huge institutions, financial industrial complex institutions. How much truth would you think that is there to it? I mean, is it a theater or what? Or
well, I've had a different approach to it. I do think there is an element of theater in there. First of all, I don't think that the U.S. is capable of waging another Iraq, Afghanistan style war against Iran for any length of time. We have serious supply chain issues. For a long time, I've said that without China, the U.S. couldn't wage a war for 6 months. They would lose the war of attrition because they outsourced and relocated, offshored our manufacturing base in the U.S. We used to be the #1 producer of semiconductors. This company Motorola was #1 in unit volume, dollar volume. They don't exist anymore. All those company assets were acquired by companies that have ties to China. And so you look at how the U.S. is structured, and our entire, I can't say our entire, but a great portion of our military industrial complex is critically dependent upon Chinese products, particularly in magnets is one, rare earths another. There's just another number of essential components and materials that are needed that the U.S. cannot produce for itself any longer. So it makes the U.S. extraordinarily vulnerable. Now, I look at what Trump is doing by moving this armada of aircraft carriers and their support groups and other assets, resources into the region. And I look at this and I think what he's trying to do is intimidate the Iranian leadership into making a deal to where they abdicate their leadership position in order to keep the country from becoming like Iraq, like Libya, like Afghanistan, where you bypass the destruction, you step down, you do it for the good of your people. And I think what Trump is doing is, I think he's saber rattling. And is it cheaper to, spend, $250 billion to put them in the area, or is it cheaper to go in there for another, 10, 15, 20-year war and spend trillions? And so I think what he's trying to do is intimidate the Iranian leadership. I think he's trying to get them to come to the table, be willing to cut a deal to protect the country and protect the Iranian people. And we'll find out where their priorities are if they choose to do that or not. So that's what I think Trump is doing. I think he's bluffing. And if I was a poker player, I would call him on his bluff, because with the technology today, with hypersonic missiles, both of the intermediate range and as well as the land to sea and sea to sea, air to sea type ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles that exist, aircraft carriers don't have a snowball's chance in hell. They're a big shooting platform that is a very outdated, obsolete platform that was first put into utility in the 1920s. It's 100 years old now. It has seen the end of its days. Technology has evolved around it. You can't defend an aircraft carrier against a swarm of 1,000 drones. How do you defend it? It's not possible. You can't do it. And so I think the day of the aircraft carrier is over. I think Trump is bluffing and blustering, and I don't think that the Iranian leadership is going to go for it. So what happens next? And that's the big $64 billion question, as to what's going to happen next. Because if anything happens, Iran has publicly stated that any small act of aggression is going to be treated as an all-out war. Because Iran's taken enough crap off the U.S. and more than enough crap off of Israel. What people don't understand is that Israel has been running espionage operations within Iran for a very long time. And the West, we don't hear about the number of soldiers, engineers, scientists, researchers who have been murdered by the Israelis while they're asleep in bed in their home in Iran. We don't hear about that.
Yeah,
but it's been ongoing for a number of time. The Israelis have no trepidation about killing a really smart PhD physicist because he might contribute to their nuclear program.
Yeah,
they don't take any risks. They take no prisoners. Israel is all about Israel. They don't care until they get caught, and then they try to buy their way out of it. One of the things that the Israelis do really well, and all the Jews do this, they'll commit a crime, and they've already got somebody set up to take the hit for it. Somebody else, they'll do the crime. They're going to have somebody else get tried, convicted, and sentenced to jail or execution, whatever, for a crime they did. They're really good at it. 9/11 is a great example. I mean, nobody in their right mind believes that 19 Arabs with box cutters brought down the Twin Towers. We know who did it. We know they had inside help with the U.S. government, but that's the type of stuff that they excel at. They're really good at it. Yeah. So you've got to be a little discerning and look beneath, what you see on the surface and ask two questions: who benefits? Why now? And a lot of times that will give you the answer as to who the real perpetrator was.
Yeah, and just look at the symbolic representation of the I don't know, Mossad symbol. It's by deception. I think it even says the slogan by deception. Though
anyway, way more by deception. Yes.
Exactly. And what you said about Iran, the whole, I mean, we don't even have to work with speculation analysis or whatever, or assumptions. The Mossad itself admitted it, that they have been, have been, and are still infiltrating every region in Iran, every so-called whatever opposite. They've got their Mossad agents everywhere. I mean, the thing is, I've had some really bad discussions, or I don't know. I have a cousin who lives in Germany, and I mean, I don't know what he has experienced in Iran, but he's constantly fishing for some fights or whatever, is sending me something, and then he expects me to say something, and then I don't, or I'm just, hey, listen, I even said, whether it's the regime or Mossad infiltrated agents doing this, I don't care. It's horrible. That's what I wrote. And then, I don't know, he said, oh, you're not Iranian and blah, blah. And I'm like, really? I mean, really, do you really want Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, to go on preaching and advocating bombing our own people in Iran? I mean, what's wrong with you? I mean, I don't. What do you want from me? I don't know. Are you being traumatized? Were you tortured? It's really mind blowing. I mean, I don't. Everybody knows, and like myself, a lot of other people, who expats or whatever you call them, like people who have emigrated or moved, diaspora, Iranian diaspora, moved everywhere else. Everybody, actually hates this regime. The only thing that I think what we are aware of, like people like me, myself, is that the Iranian regime, especially with its military, they are they are fulfilling, in my opinion, a role, a transitional role in order to unify the people of Iran, but not under the theocratic Islamic regime. We don't need that. I mean, 700 after Christ, we've all been raped and becoming, I don't know, whatever, Islam or Muslims, I don't know. We have to go back to our roots and unify the people of Iran. But is it possible with all this theocratic Islamic, doctrine or whatever dogma? Yes, it is. Yes. But right now, I think it's either everything or nothing. Because if Iran loses everything, then we have no Iran. It's going to be splintered in thousands of parts, right? They're going to do the same thing that they've been doing to any other country. I mean, with they're just going to, just split it in all, in thousands, 10,000s of pieces. And that's what I think what they're trying to do by the so-called regime change or whatever. So, yeah. Does the military and its so-called whatever mullahs or ayatollahs play a role in this, a functional role? Yes, I do believe that. But for how long? That's the question.
Let's go back. You brought up some really good topics here. Let's talk about Mossad. And let's talk about the unrest that's going on in Iran right now, where the U.S. is beating the drum that's saying, 10,000, 20,000 protesters were killed. Well, that's probably true. But what the Islamic regime is doing is they're taking this opportunity of this unrest to purge Iran of known Mossad operatives and known Mossad collaborators. So they're purging them. They're getting rid of them. I heard how do I say this? A proprietary briefing about what happened in Mossad from U.S. intelligence agencies, and they were whining about how 20 years of work has been undone by these deaths of the protesters that are out there. Well, it's not just protesters they're killing. They're killing anybody who has any suspicion upon them of being an agent for another foreign power, whether it's Israel, the U.S., MI6, whatever. But they're killing them and they're purging them and getting rid of them, with good reason, because they're the ones who enable Mossad to assassinate your scientists and your engineers and your military leaders. They're the ones who enable it. They're the ones who do it. So that purge will be good for the country of Iran. You don't want outside foreign interference. The next thing you brought up about Reza Pahlavi coming back, of course he wants to come back. His dad screwed up and lost the family business, but the reason the Ayatollahs were able to come in and overthrow the Shah is because the Shah was such a brutal dictator. He was ruthless, and the Savat was his secret police. Everyone in Iran, even when I was in undergraduate school in the late 70s, well, early 70s, mid 70s, I went to school with a lot of Iranians and became good friends with them. And all of them, even in the United States, were afraid to speak openly, behave openly, because they were still being monitored by elements of the Iranian secret police, the Savat, within the USA, so that they didn't come home with any radical ideas that made them want to upset the balance of power and upset the Shah. That's how paranoid he was. Now, to bring Reza Pahlavi back, who has stated publicly he's willing to wage war on Iran and to bomb the people, to kill his own Iranian citizens so he can get back into power, fuck him. He is worth a warm bucket of shit. He just isn't. This is not a man who loves his country and loves his people. Do I like the theocracy, the current Islamic regime? I don't really have a dog in the fight. I don't understand Islam. I'm not comfortable with many aspects of Islam. Others I welcome. It's a mixed blessing. It's a blessing and a curse. And so there's parts of it I like, parts of it I don't like. So I'm not going to make a statement on that. However, the Iranian people, like all free people, all sovereign people in the world, have the right to select their type of government. And if they don't want the theocracy, they have the right to put it out. What my fear is that during that time of confusion, you're going to have the Israelis and the CIA and the MI6 and they're meddling around trying to put their puppet in there. So does Iran want to be the next Iraq with a Saddam Hussein or his equivalent in there, a Reza Pahlavi, in the role of Saddam? I don't think so. I don't think that they want that. They're, the Iranians, Persians, Kulaks, all of the different minorities that populate, Iran, they have a right to choose who their leadership is going to be, what their form of government is going to be, and let them do it unmolested. Allow them to come to their terms on them. I mean, believe me, the infighting is going to be enough as to who gets to sit in the big chair and wear the big hat. I mean, everybody's going to want that job, and so let them come alone. Let the best candidate come out and prove to the people why he's the best guy, and the rest of the world should just butt out and leave him alone. But our Jewish friends in the U.S. State Department and in MI6 and in Israel will never allow that to happen. So the Iranian people are going to have to be very, very, very cautious and not accept the new government unless it's the government they want. And that's just how it's going to have to be, because Iran cannot fall and become another Jewish vassal state.
Yeah, and a couple of things, because we chit-chatted, I think, a while ago via text, and I told you, asked me something like, did I hear anything about Iran? And I said yes. There have been like peaceful protests, of course, economical, financial, monetary wise, and what most people seem to not to know or seem to forget is the sanctions and embargoes that have been ongoing against the Iranian people for like 30 or 40 years. I mean, who's been suffering under this? Of course, the Iranian people. Yeah. Because the Ayatollahs and mullahs, they've got all, they all, they've all sort of, they're all been in possession of all the, assets and everything. So, I'm not worried about the mullahs and the Ayatollahs, but the Iranian people, how many people do we have now in Iran? That's like 80 or 90 million people. I mean,
82 million is what I looked up this morning. 82 million people live in Iran.
Yeah. And about like 60-70% of the population is approximately 30 years of age. Yes. Highly educated, of course. They've done a tremendous job. I mean, literacy, the studies, thinking outside the box with the nuclear technology, plasma technology. It's amazing. Medical innovation. It's mind blowing what they've been achieving. And really, really congratulations to the Iranian people. Thanks to the to Iranian brains. Otherwise, they would have made it so far with the military, with the military technology, whatever that is. Of course, they've been adopting and developing further Chinese, Russian technologies. Definitely, no question about that. But there have been, it's all started with peaceful protests. The hyperinflationary, I mean, it's like totally monetarily, the Iranian rial or tuman or whatever it's called, is like totally debased. And people are suffering, of course. And this is what they are, oh, by the way, you mentioned Savak. Savak was, by the way, as you know, trained, not only by the CIA, but by Mossad, which most people don't seem to forget. But, and they've done, I mean, they did horrible things. I saw pictures, of torture and horrible things during the Shah regime. So yeah, there's no justification for any of that shit. Okay. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the, of the Shah or whatever, or the theocratic regime. I'm pro-Iranian people. I'm pro-humanity, So
yes.
Yes. So of course they're going to exploit, the suffering, the pain, the economical hardships, the sanctions that have been causing all this shit, in Iran. So yeah, of course they're going to exploit it. And even the regime itself, or regime, advocates said, there's nothing wrong protesting, peaceful protests. Why not go protest? Yes, we gotta deal with it. We gotta find a solution. But this is what has been exploited, like in the last whatever couple of weeks or months.
Well, first of all, the protests began because the Iranian rial was being artificially attacked by Israel and other countries aligned with the SWIFT banking system. It was being attacked in order to drive the value of the currency down, in order to foment protest. Once those protests happened, then you've got the Mossad, CIA, MI6 agents in there paying people to spread the protest and to change the topic of the protest from the economic complaint into a regime complaint.
What a déjà vu, Mike.
So,
Was it there? Remember?
Yes. So you've got this happening. This is a classic color revolution technique that they use and use frequently. And so see through it, understand what's going on. And so that is one of the tragedies here. I mean, if you work all week and you get your paycheck and it buys half of what it did last week, because the country, 1,000 miles away is screwing with your currency, yeah, you're pissed about it. You want your government to fix it because I can't live on half of what I was making last week. I've got bills, I've got kids, I've got to buy food, gas, pay the rent, everything else. So people get upset whenever they're hurt financially, and so that's what was going on, and that's been exploited. So that's just a for instance there, but they're using the same techniques in Iran by paying protesters, the same as they're using in Minneapolis, where they're paying protesters to come up and complain against the regime. Classic color revolution stuff. And then Iran, they shot some people. Like I said, they took advantage of the opportunity that Mossad gave them to purge the Mossad, the known Mossad agents and their associates. And so that was a smart thing they did, because the Iranian people, if you're ever going to have a free and fair election to elect the government you want as an Iranian, you can't have the Mossad or CIA, anyone interfering in it.
Yeah. And by the way, what I was going to say, anyway, it'll come back. What I was going to say about Trump is, I mean, whoever's bitch or puppet Trump is, and he might be really a puppet of the financial industrial complex, which I agree, it's sort of subordinate to the military industrial complex. Is the dollar, in your opinion, I mean, right now what's going on, with the gold, silver price, everything, jacked up, manipulated, whatever, it's going to, I think it's going to explode the whole thing. And, but looking a little bit back and zooming out, I mean, do you think the dollar as a, international reserve currency is being sacrificed for the financial industrial complex, for the global transnational financial industrial complex? And
well, yes, the short answer is yes, I do. But I see a lot of things going on here. And part of it is the amount of dollar printing, dollar creation that's happened since COVID is one of the reasons that we're seeing the inflation in the U.S. I mean, in 2 years, the price of food has tripled in the United States. So, what cost you, $100 2 years ago is now going to cost you $300. And most families, most people can't tolerate that. It is too much. As far as the gold and silver pricing, for 50 years or longer, these prices have been artificially suppressed. They've been depressed intentionally to keep gold and silver down. They issue these paper contracts that are redeemable, but we're to the point now where these contracts cannot be redeemed because enough silver does not exist. Silver is going to be the first to go. It's going to go crazy. They're attacking back today. Silver was down about, gold was down about $300. Silver was down about 15 or 16 bucks earlier this morning. I haven't looked lately, but they're pushing back by issuing more paper contracts. So what happens when you have a failure to deliver on a paper contract that says, you bought 1,000 kilos of silver. I bought the contract. I want the silver. What happens when they can't deliver? Well, what that does is that will collapse the entire derivatives market, which globally we don't have an adequate number for it, but it's somewhere between 2.4 and 4.2 quadrillion dollars. And now a quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. A trillion is 1,000 billion. And so you look at the enormous amount of money, and it's going to end the entire Western banking system. It's going to break it. It's going to stop. And so is this their excuse to put us into this, what is it, digital currency, their central bank digital currency? Yes, no, I don't know. I can't see it. I hope not, because if that takes root and that, succeeds, then you have effectively become a slave, because they can cut off your ability to spend money. If you're restricted, let's say all right, you're grounded. You can't go more than 10 kilometers from your home. Well, you go 11 kilometers and they can shut off your money. So you can't buy gasoline to get back. You can't buy food. You can't do nothing. And if they found out that you didn't listen, they might take access to all of your money away. They can track your transactions. If you've had steak or eating too much protein a week, consuming more than your share, they can not allow your card to buy any more at the grocery store. There's so much control they have over it, and this has got to be resisted. And so gold and silver are going to be the new currencies again of the future, away from Federal Reserve notes and away from U.S. Treasury bills. So we will see.
Yeah. And by the way, you said, I think you mentioned central bank digital currencies are, I think the stable coin is sort of a euphemism, a sort of a circumvention of the, they just call it maybe stable coin, but it's the same shit because it's centralized. It's also, it might be programmable. So, yeah.
Well, I look at, the creation of the cryptocurrencies. I like the Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has done so much to help the criminal cartels around the planet as far as how they move money, and without oversight, without constraint on it, that it was really a great tool for them, because you can move huge amounts of money, very quickly as compared to going through the SWIFT system and the bank-to-bank transfer, wire transfer process. And so I like those features, but I'm also terrified of those features.
Mm-hmm.
To where, what happens if the power's out? How do you access your money? How do you get to it if you're on a system like that? I look at hackers every day are out stealing identities. They're shutting people's banks down. They're cleaning out their accounts. If we're all dependent upon a system like that is so fragile, how do we protect ourselves? I mean, there really is no safe way. If you've got gold and silver and you're walking down the street, someone comes up and steals your gold, exactly. Yeah. You're just as broke, But these are all vulnerabilities within having a financial system at all. So, how do we get around these things and still have access to funding and credit and capital, so that we can build a society and live in a civilized society? These are all questions. The other thing I want to go back to that we haven't discussed yet is, if there is a war with Iran, do you have any idea what the refugee problem is going to be in Europe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not a common sight in your location where you are now, but if there's a war in Iran, there's going to be an Iranian on every street corner, maybe 100 of them. Mm-hmm. We don't know. We look at what the war in Syria did to Europe. We look at what the war in Libya has done to Europe. And, these things that were keeping these tides of immigration in place will be gone. And with a war in Iran, there will be pressure for these people to leave or die. And so people are going to leave. They're gonna run like a scalded dog. Turkey's going to take it really hard. So is Europe. So are a lot of countries. But the refugee problems that occur are going to occur if this war happens. And so, like I said, I pray that it does not.
Yeah, and just look at this dictator, Mrs. von der Leyen, whatever. I mean, she's sort of she's not even elected anyway. Nobody voted for her. I don't know how she got into power with all the corruption going and everything else, the systemic theft. And what kind of deal, like a migration policy deal, has she done with India? We're talking about a migration of 200 million people from India to Europe to Germany, especially because one of the favorite countries. It's an agenda, Mike. I mean, it's intentional, right?
Well, it goes back to the Kalergi plan.
Right.
And the Kalergi plan was to, wipe out the white race countries, to wipe out the white race, yeah, by genocide and breeding them out, so that in 2-3 generations you don't have any white people left. You've got all these mixtures, these mutts, this race of mud people that are black and brown and white all mixed together. You can't tell what they are.
Yeah.
That's not. None of us signed up for that.
Yeah.
we all like our own people, our own, most of the time we prefer our own people because that's
it's natural. It's natural. Yeah. I mean, look at the white race. It's already as good as it's extinct. Look at the systemic rape that's going on in whatever, in northern countries, European countries, Sweden. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Well, at the end of World War II, the white race was a little over 30% of the global population. And since that time, the global population has tripled, and the white race is down to less than 8% of that. So, the blacks and browns are doing quite well. I mean, Black Africa has never done this well. And, so they're going to continue to breed and multiply as long as you keep feeding them. Right. If you want to contain the black race, isolate them, commercially. And that is you don't sell them food. You let them produce their own. You don't sell them medicine. You let them produce their own. That's the other point about the sanctions in Iran. Same thing happened in Russia. When you issue sanctions on a country, initially it causes great hardship. But that country will adapt, and that country will become stronger than ever because
out of necessity.
You're not going to sell us pharmaceuticals. Okay, well, we'll make our own. We've got good chemists, we've got good engineers, we can do this. And so they do. And one of the examples I'll give you is Iran is a major oil producer globally. They're a major oil producer. Well, the West was not going to sell them the tools they needed to develop their oil. So what did they do? They went out and they copied everything that Schlumberger made. And now they've got best in class drilling materials, drilling equipment that they can use anytime they want. And now they're selling it to the rest of the world. So did the sanctions really hurt them, or did they strengthen them in a way that wasn't anticipated by the sanctions? The sanctions thing is such a short-sighted, stupid example of the idiots that we in the United States and in Western Europe have running our foreign policy. It's just stupid.
Right. I just want to, I don't know, I don't want to push back, but I just want to sort of make my correct assessment is about when you talk about criminal cartels, like using I mean, you call it cryptocurrency. I mean, I'm all into Bitcoin and everything else, shitcoin or a scam or fraud. And Bitcoin, has all the monetary technological properties. But I mean, how many, not years, but decades, I mean, how long has been going on that the criminal organizations, including the military industrial complex, financial industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, all the governments of the world have been money laundering, circumventing taxes or whatever through Cayman or whatever in trillions and trillions and trillions money, right? I mean, it's been going on for a very long time. I just wanted to, sort of.
Well, no, you make a good point. And the point being is that the drug cartels and the human trafficking cartels may be using this, but the intelligence agencies who are also engaging in criminal activities are using it. And so are the governments who are engaging in criminal activities are using this. This has been a bonanza for criminal enterprise, no matter who does it, and for what reason. And so it's been out there. But, like I said, they've sort of cracked the Bitcoin a bit. So now you can trace backwards as to where the wallet originated from, who did it, who that. There's only one coin out there that I'm aware of, and that's Monero. That is still an extremely private coin, and boy, is it ever hard to get. It's a tough one to even find. But I've been tracking it for some time, and about 6 months ago, the value of a Monero was around $225, and it went up as high as $750. And now it's back down to almost 400, 425 range again.
Yeah. But the only thing, that's the only aspect of Monero which I said, hey, why can't we talk openly about Monero's privacy aspect?
Yes.
Right? How can we incorporate or integrate the privacy aspect into, because everything else is a little bit shady, about the scarcity, everything. It's I'm not sure about whether you can really verify. It doesn't matter, right? But the privacy aspect, if we could just, enhance it into Bitcoin somehow,
Well, I think you'd have to rewrite a lot of code to do that, but everybody needs a good challenge now and then. But that's the thing. I mean, we all have the right to privacy. But yet with the ability of supercomputers, AI, other tools out there, our privacy is becoming less.
Mm-hmm.
And so the privacy becomes more valuable the less there becomes of it. And so we all have this right to privacy and do what we want because we choose to.
Right.
And not be molested or pestered by anybody else who's trying to infringe upon our own sovereignty as an individual. So do I have an answer for this? I don't have an easy answer, but value your privacy. And I tell you what I've noticed here about privacy is I've been using a VPN for a number of years now. And you've got to be careful with the VPN because the Israelis are now buying up the VPN companies so that they can still see who you are, where you are. I mean, like I said, it's they have a paranoia about them.
Yeah, the most well-known VPN. I mean, I'm using it myself, and I'm like, is it really so effective? And maybe we should because there are a couple of really open source, decentralized sort of where you can even pay with Bitcoin, and you don't have to go to the fiat system like Malvat or something like that. Anyway, listen, Mike, I don't want to hold you up too much, but if you have like 5 or 10 minutes, is there anything from a bigger picture perspective?
I will make as much time for you as you need. Like I said,
awesome.
I look forward to my interviews with you because you're engaging. Part of your job as a journalist, like I said, I like you, and part of your job as a journalist is to get me to like you, so I speak openly and without reservation. I mean, it's like if you're a salesman, you go to a customer, you want to sell him something, you want him to like you because if he doesn't like you, he's not going to buy anything from you. It's the same thing with journalists. You've got to have your subjects have to like you because you get the most information that way. So
no, it's totally mutual, Mike. You're a good friend of mine, and I highly respect your extreme, spectrum of intelligence and knowledge and comprehension. Is there anything like from a bigger perspective, like, I don't know, I'm trying to also to give back some hope, some vision, some perspective to the people of my listener, not just, the analysis is important to understand once for all, but like technological wise, or we all, in the beginning, we talked about like going back to the roots, like, a self-sufficiency. Is there anything you can give back to the people? Like, what can we do?
Yes, I can. I'm glad you asked. That's a great question because first of all, we have no problems we can't fix. Okay. The problems that we have are problems of other people's delusions where they want to control the world. They want power. They want money. And that's what creates a lot of our problems. And then you have this go on and an infrastructure gets built up around the problem. In the United States, I'll give you the example of Lyndon Johnson, 1964-65, created the war on poverty. Okay. Now there's this whole network out there, this whole infrastructure created by his war on poverty. It's the EBT cards, it's the Section 8 housing, it's all of these welfare benefits that have become the biggest expense on the entire U.S. budget. But how do you get rid of it? Well, it's there. You've got millions of people who will defend it with their lives because they need it, whether they're a beneficiary of the welfare system or they're working to administer the welfare system for the people. They're going to defend it. But we have no problems we can't fix. We just have to overcome the people who are in our way from fixing them. And that is where this discussion needs to go to, is how do we deal with the people who are protecting dysfunction within our society? Do we want to live with this dysfunction? Do we want to live with this bloated welfare system? And now we've got third and fourth generation people who are going to be welfare dependent their entire lives. That's not what this war on poverty was sold to us as. It was sold to the American people as, let's give people a hand up. Let's help them get out of poverty. Well, we've not gotten anybody out of poverty. We've put more and more people into poverty and create a bigger bureaucracy, a bigger infrastructure to support them. It's doing the wrong thing with the wrong metrics. So why do we embrace this? Why do we allow this to continue when we know how to fix it? And the reason is you've got millions upon millions who need this, who become dependent and don't want to do anything else other than what they're doing. And sometimes you just have to have change, you have to force change. And so, there's, like I said, there's no problems we have that we can't fix, can't make better. We just have to have the political will to do what it takes to make them better. And, I don't care if it's a military industrial complex. I think I sent you my paper on Beyond Empire about how to restructure the American
great piece.
defense industry.
Yeah.
You know, that takes that on. I mean, Trump just asked for $1.5 trillion defense budget, an increase of over $500 billion a year. And you know, I'm advocating that we only need a $200 billion a year defense budget if we focus on defending North America, which is what our Constitution states the role of our government and military should be. So am I going to have pushback on this? Yeah, because all these defense contractors out there, they don't want to change. They want to keep making missiles that you use once and they're done. You know, $5 million every time you fire one, $10 million every time you fire one, it can never be used again. You know, there's a better way to do that, where the United States is impoverishing itself, building a military machine that they can't and won't use. You know, that's the problem, because the military doesn't produce any long-term benefits. Like I said, all the technology they produce, you use it once, it's done. You can't fire a bullet twice unless you reload it, then you can. But missiles, the same thing. You can't use them twice. So let's invest in smarter things. You know, the United States is like a tree that's dying from the inside, where it's rotting out from the. It looks healthy on the outside, but the inside is dying. I mean, our highways are turning to gravel instead of concrete and asphalt. Our airports are antiques compared to go to Chicago O'Hare, the busiest airport in North America, and it's a dump. And you go to Changi International in Singapore, and my goodness, this is a nice airport. I like this one. It feels good.
You can't even compare it. I mean, look at China. I mean, you're talking about like the military budgets. I mean, instead of, you know, I mean, it's a fraction of what they've been, you know, building or developing or whatever, investing into military technology innovation. They've been building like bullet trains, maglev trains. I mean, unbelievable technologies.
That's the whole thing. See, you're going to have a stronger country if you have a strong infrastructure internal to that country. We've been neglecting our infrastructure, our highways, our railroads, our telecom, our electrical grid. All of this stuff has been neglected to a minimalist, keep it running type situation for 30, 40 years, maybe longer. It's wearing out. And so, like I said, we're that hollow tree. It looks strong, like it'll withstand the storm, but it'll blow over in a strong wind. And so we've got to rebuild our country from the inside out. And that it's better schools, better libraries, you know, better transportation, better power grid. Make all of these things as state-of-the-art and as reliable and robust as possible. And that will make this country stronger. If you can take out a node on the power grid and black out 6 or 7 states, which has happened in this country before, you have a weakness there. Yeah. That's a critical weakness.
Yeah.
If another country, whether it's a solar storm or EMP, can take out half of the country's grid, you're going to lose, you know, 80 million people because they're going to die in the first 2 weeks without the power grid on. Are you really a strong country? You are not. And so, you know, my premise here is that the U.S., until we strengthen ourselves internally and strengthen our infrastructure, they're a paper tiger. They can go out and roar and you know, growl and, you know, show their claws and fangs, but we're not really a strong country because we're so vulnerable internally here in the U.S. And these are the things that I think need to be looked at and addressed. And again, if you want to catch this paper, it's on the inteldrop.org, and it's called Beyond Empire. Just type it in on a search; it'll come up. It's a long paper, somewhat dry. It's written in the style of a Rand Corporation white paper for government consumption. I did it myself, and, so it's a tedious work, but it's a good work. It tells you what can be, and how by spending the same amount we're spending now, we can strengthen this country and make it better and make it more vibrant financially. One of the things it advocates for is to return manufacturing to the U.S. Yes. Well, okay, that's a good thing. But what manufacturing do we want to return? We gave all of our, what Bill Clinton called our dirty industry, to China. So do we want to build bicycles in the U.S.? No, because it'll be a race to the bottom. Who can build it cheaper between us and China? Let China have that. But we want the new industries. We want, you know, material science. We want, you know, the things, you know, the new pharmaceutical. We can have gravity-free manufacturing platforms, orbital in space, and do things that are going to really be beneficial. Instead of having Raytheon building missiles that have a one shot, use them once and they're done. Let's build reusable cargo transports between here and Mars, here in the asteroid belt. Let's send people out to explore or probes out to explore the asteroid belt and find out what's worth mining out there. It's all sitting there for us. We have to show the motivation to go out there and bring these things home. One of the things that a flaw in the U.S., and this is in the entire West, it comes from the Chicago School of Economics. It was fortified by a Supreme Court decision, 20, 30 years ago. And that is the highest drive for managers and board members in a company is to drive shareholder value. That is wrong, because when you drive shareholder value at the expense of everything else, you create what we have in the United States today. And that is profit driven and profit only. You don't care about the welfare of your people. You don't care about the conservation of your environment, your resources. You don't care about nothing except how to get rich quick and make that fast buck.
Yeah, and you have only one social responsibility, that is towards the shareholders, right?
towards shareholders. And really, companies, government, individuals, we have a responsibility to all of the stakeholders. Your shareholders are rich, but you just threw 20,000 people out of a job and now they're going to starve. They don't have a job anymore. The same thing if you shut down a plant, move it overseas. Okay, all of your supply chain vendors who are servicing that industry, now they're out of business. So the ripple effect that goes out in the economy from this is huge. And that's why it is paramount that we as the United States bring back and start developing new businesses, new technologies here domestically within the U.S. Bringing the old factories back, it's probably not going to happen because, like I said, we don't want to build bicycles. China already does that for us. We don't need to duplicate that. Like I said, it'll be a race to the bottom as to who can make the cheapest bike the quickest. That's not where the excitement is. The excitement is in what do we do next? How do we make this world a better place? I think it was the Iroquois Indians. I may be wrong on the tribe, but I think it was the Iroquois Indians, or maybe it was the Comanches. I forget. But they had a saying that unless it works for everyone, it works for no one. And the follow-on to that is, unless you have to plan the consequences out, not just now, but 7 generations in advance.
Yeah.
You have to look at the long-term effect.
Yeah. And
these are things that the thinking out of the Chicago School of Economics, that shareholder value is the only thing, which is measured on quarterly. That's a really short-sighted, stupid way to do things. We need to start looking at how does this work for everyone involved, and how does this work for the subsequent generations? How are we going to leave this country, this planet, better for the people 6, 7 generations from now? Are our decisions going to achieve that set of goals? And until we start thinking that way as a government and as businesses, until that paradigm shifts on how the body politic, that everyone involved in the political process starts thinking that way, we're screwed to more of what we got now. And it's going to get worse fast.
Yeah. Mike, when we talk about, when you always talk about United States government, United States of America, it's, to be honest with you, right, it's long gone. It's, been hijacked, co-opted, systemically stolen. How much technologies? I know you know much more than you are right now preaching, because, you're yourself a technological insider. We've been talking, with Ashton Forbes. I don't want to even bring up his name. He's on a certain, in a very narrow band, he's a genius, researcher himself. But anyway, a conversation without mentioning Catherine Austin Fitz, who's always talking about the missing 21 trillion at least, who has been, what was she, assistant secretary or whatever, housing, urban development.
Housing, urban development.
Yeah, under George Bush. So what happened to this money? It went into all the suppressed technologies, the buildup of the peril or civilization. So it's because you're always talking about potentially it can be. No, it's already here. It just needs to be disclosed. It needs to come to the fucking surface.
Yes. Well, it does. And I'll go back even further. Let's go back to Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI project, Star Wars. And the nearly $1 trillion that was spent on that, developing technologies that have never been released to the people of the United States. George H.W. Bush took that. So see, I read the trade journals, in the technology trade journals. I read a lot of stuff. And back then I could tell you approximately where the development of it was. But once George H.W. Bush took over, that went black, man. It went totally black. And it went underground. And that's when the money started migrating out of the budget into these black programs. So there's a correlation, there's a timing correlation with that supports what Catherine Austin Fitch, Richard Dolan, others have said. And so I don't doubt what she's saying at all. I do believe there is a well-developed secret space program, and who knows what the hell else that they have out there. But yeah, underground. They don't look up, look down. But these are things that we, as the American taxpayers, have a right to know because we paid for it. That's my money they took. That's my tax dollars that they use to fund these things. I want my share of the disclosure. I think everyone else has paid taxes wants the same thing. So these things have to come to the surface. And as the current U.S. government, see, the thing is, the way they structured is so clever, because they offloaded a lot of these technologies to the defense contractors who have them. They're sitting on them, and they can't be disclosed to Congress, unless they want to. I mean, what are you going to do? So you listen to the guy from Skunk Works, I guess it was Lockheed, who had that. Their chairman and CEO said 25, 30 years ago, yeah. He says, we have the ability to bring ET home right now. And so if that's, I mean, they've got technology 1,000 years advance of anything we've seen. You look at these cell phones, you look at how much this has changed since 1992, 3, 4, whatever it was, when I got my first Motorola block cell phone, that big brick-shaped one, to this here today with all the stuff this does. Yeah. Tremendous strides forward. Where we haven't seen any strides forward is in energy production. Right. We're still using internal combustion engines. Jesus. We're still using the same turbine generators to generate electricity. We've had no real advancements in that. When you read the works of Tom Bearden talking about zero-point energy and things, and we know these things can exist, but we've not seen the evidence of it. You read Maxwell's original equations, not the ones edited and censored by Heaviside, but the original Maxwell equations. There's a lot of information in there that what is possible. I'm going to disclose something to you now publicly here. In 2015, I had a trip to Italy with Colonel Jim Hankey, who's a close friend of mine. And our purpose over there was we were meeting with a group of Iranian scientists and engineers, and they debriefed us on what the Iranian developments were. And when, I forget, was it the president of Iran or was it the Ayatollah who came out and said, if we have to go to war, you're going to see weapons that you cannot imagine. I know for a fact they have weapons you cannot imagine because I was briefed back in 2015 about what they were working on directly by Iranians themselves. So this is the first time I've spoken about this publicly. But it's there, it's real, and I'm going to give you a hint. It's scalar weapons and things that you cannot imagine. So, it's the Russians demonstrated this in with the incident on the Black Sea with the USS Donald Cook, where they had a plane fly over in the Donald Cook, an Aegis-class destroyer, which is designed to protect entire carrier groups. It went dead in the water for 12, 16 hours, and when they got it back up and running, they got out of there and they went back to Norfolk, Virginia. And the entire officer corps on that ship resigned. Because we can't, and they stated publicly that we, as the officer corps on the ship, we cannot protect our ship and crew, so we resign. We are not competent to do this any longer. Oh my God! And so, what that technology was, and why it worked, is that the Russians had developed the ability on electronic circuits to stop the flow of electrons without destroying the device. So they can If your radio's on, you're talking. If your electronic actuator is on, it's working. They can stop the flow of electrons to it for as long as they want over a field, covers an area for a while. And then when they stop, the device works like normal. And that is an uncanny ability. It was demonstrated. The Russians showed us point blank. Let's just say the Iranians have that and more. Like you said earlier, Iranians make really, really good engineers. I mean, they're excellent, top shelf.
That's what I meant.
The way they think, their discipline, their innovation is incredible,
and they're very creative. I think thinking outside the box, maybe. I don't know.
Well, let me give you an example. We talk about the U.S. and China. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about, well, the U.S. they're such better innovators. The Chinese are really good copiers. Why is this? Why do the Chinese lag? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because of the language, and it's. People don't think about this, but the language teaches people how to think. If you look at Chinese and you look at Japanese and other things, they use kanji characters. So you've got a symbol for fire, you got a symbol for water, you got a symbol for man, female, bread, food, whatever, symbol specific. And if you're really a smart guy and you know 10,000 kanji characters, you're considered a scholar. Whereas you look at the Western languages, you look at English, you look at Russian, you look at Greek, you look at all these different languages. They're modular languages. In English, we have 26 letters, and they're interchangeable. So you can interchange them in any way you want and create a new word. The Chinese can't do that. Now, the Chinese are getting better at innovating because their people, their engineers, are learning English. So how you think about language shapes how you think as a creator, as an engineer, as a scientist, as things. So these things have direct and measurable impacts on how things work and how the mind works. And so that's just something for everyone to keep in the back of your head as to why Chinese do certain things well, why Americans do certain things well, why the Persians do certain things well. And so, and by the way, a challenge for everybody. When you think of Iran, everybody thinks of the Persians as Iranians. They are, but there's probably 25 other ethnic groups out there too that are also Iranians who've lived in the area for 1,000 years. And to go back to, Iran is new to Islam relatively. Prior to that, the Iranians were Zoroasters.
Yes.
And so, I don't see the comfort that Islam brings. I don't see it fitting with the Iranian people long term.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. And when I said in the beginning on a military, because you're talking about plasma, I mean, I don't know if you can subsume it under the plasma technology, whatever Russians have or Iran has. I mean, insofar as they are sort of publicly, officially, like posturing or demonstrating their conventional military defensive technologies, this might be a theater too on some level. You know what I'm saying? Like, because maybe what's going on behind the scenes, why whatever Israel, United States, whatever it dares not to attack Iran is maybe because of that highly defensive technologies they have or don't have. What do you think?
Well, I think that is, if it isn't, it should be a major consideration for the Israelis and for the United States to not launch any attacks, because I think they're going to let the genie out of the bottle. Mm-hmm. The genie's going to be pissed, because like I said, what I was briefed on with Colonel Henke is some pretty incredible technologies that if the capabilities are realized and realistic, it's a game changer. And it could be a game changer in a positive way. It's just that no one wants to be the first guy to use a new technology, because then you've shown the world what you've got.
Yes.
Every measure, there's a countermeasure.
Yes.
And so, like I said, the U.S. spent over $1 trillion on Reagan's Star Wars program, and we've never seen the fruits of that investment yet, but they're there. So, like I said, there was a time by reading the trade journals I could keep up with a lot of things, but now, since George H.W. Bush was in, boy, it went dark, went hard dark. So
yeah. So I leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. Mike, this has been a tremendous, awesome conversation. I think my listeners, my followers is going to gain a lot of insights and comprehension from that. And yeah, Mike, anywhere where I can people lead to, is there Intel Drops active or the website?
Oh, no, Intel Drop is active and stuff, and go to the admin or if you need to get an email to me or want to discuss it, route it through there. I deliberately keep myself hard to find. I have no social media presence. I do these interviews. I've been told recently when I publish articles to publish them under a nom de plume, a pseudonym, because they're going to use everything we've ever done as the Semites gain, the fake Semites gain more control, more power in the U.S. They're going to make guys like me extremely uncomfortable. We watched the assassination of Charlie Kirk because he was going to betray them after they invested in him. And we're going to see more and more of that going on because the Jews know what's coming. They have the reason they're so paranoid is they have the guilty mind syndrome. And I'll give you an example. If you and I are walking through a store and it's wintertime and your glove falls out of your pocket, but you don't know it. And we're walking along and the security guard sees it, he picks up the glove and he walks up behind us and says, "Excuse me, sir." You turn around, you see the security guard. If you're guilty of shoplifting or something, you run for the door. You run it because you know what you did. Whether it's about the glove or not, you have no idea. You're just paranoid because, oh my God, the security guy's here. I got to get out of here. He's going to catch me. He's going to put me in jail. But if you're an innocent person where you say, "How can I help you?" You say, "Oh, here, so you dropped your glove." The guy's doing you a favor. And it depends on where your mind is at. And I look at the Jews, and I look at their fear of anti-Semitism because they know what they've done. They know how they have looted this country. They know how they've pillaged it. They know how they've abused every citizen in the United States. I mean, it's what people need to understand is that the Bolsheviks in Russia during the Russian Revolution, over the 75 years they were in power, they killed probably 100 million Christian men, women, and children, stole their property. Well, the original Bolsheviks are long dead, but their grandchildren now live in the USA, and they're in our State Department. They're in our Department of Defense. They're in every local government, state government, federal government, everywhere. They've taken over. We are a Zionist-occupied government right now. We are no longer a democratic republic. We are really a Jewish oligarchy that runs the United States, and they control the media. So there's no media attention on this. No one talks about it. But look at Trump's cabinet. Look at Biden's cabinet. Look at who runs. Who the high-level placements are. Look at who runs our businesses. Look at who runs these big equity firms like State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard. Look at who runs the big private equity companies. It's the same group. Look at who runs our media. Look at who runs Hollywood. Look at who runs our news organizations. Look at who runs everything of merit in shaping public opinion or what your experience is as a citizen living in the U.S. And it's that same group who are less than 2% of our total population in the U.S., yet they control 98% of everything that has a policy or decision to it that's going to benefit or hurt the American people. There's no reason in the world for the people of the United States to be supporting Israel at all. There's none. There's no strategic benefit to us other than the fact that they pay out of our 535 elected officials, congressmen and senators, all but 9 of them, only 9, do not take money from AIPAC or the other Israel lobbying groups that are out there. And it's unbelievable. So if you think your representative represents you, no, he doesn't represent you. He represents them because they're paying him and you're not.
Yeah. So, on top of that, we've got the blackmail and the otherwise you can't
everything else. I mean, these people have no boundaries, no shame. The Epstein incident shows this in full regard. They're trying to keep it out of the news. Trump's not releasing the information as mandated by Congress. But bribery, blackmail, extortion, all of these nefarious ways, even murder. I mean, even murder. They will do anything to advance their cause. They're without remorse. They're without conscience. And so my thing is, are they even human? Because they show no humanity to anyone else.
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah, do they feel any kind of remorse or?
Well, look at Gaza. Look at how you can want to shoot children in the head at 4, 5, 6 years old, and say, well, he's going to grow up and be a terrorist. Well, he wasn't a terrorist, and now he's dead. And like I said, are they human because they lack humanity? What really is our definition of a human being these days?
Yeah.
So.
I do have hope, Mike. I mean, thanks to you and a few other people. I mean, we don't have the critical mass yet, the awakening or whatever, but I do see. I mean, maybe you have the impression too that there are more and more people. Thanks to these conversations and I don't know, whatever articles written, books written, discussions going on. I think there's a growing number of people who are maybe even for the first time waking up to this reality of truth.
Well, what I've noticed is that even in casual conversations, you're at a store, you're checking out, you make a comment about some issue, and the guy behind the counter will agree with you. Yeah, you're right. And I'm seeing that more and more. So yes, it is gaining mass, but the deck is really stacked against us. But again, I will say this: we have no problems we can't fix. We just have to have more political will than those who are thwarting us from implementing our solutions to these problems. And when I ran for governor of Arizona, frequently every candidate goes through this. Why do you want to be governor? And my answer was always because I want to do the most good for the most people in the most cost-effective manner.
Mm-hmm.
And if we live by these type of premises, is that how do politicians, how do we as a politician benefit our people? Now, granted, we have a good military in this country. And we have young men, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old who join, sign up, and willingly go into situations where they're putting their life at risk, for the good of the country, because that's what they signed up for. We have politicians who won't do this. And they succumb to the bribery. They succumb to the blackmail. They succumb to the extortion. Well, yeah, but they called me on the phone on my son's cell phone when he was at school to let me know that my son's in danger if I don't vote the way they want. Okay, well, you may be protecting your kid by going along with what they ask of you. How many other kids have you just killed by going along with what they ask of you? And you, as a politician, are supposed to be the one representing us. If you don't have the strength and the courage that we expect out of our enlistees in the military to go out and face certain death or certain hardship, or to get your body maimed, disfigured, you'll lose an arm or a leg or something. If you don't have that capability, then why are you in political office? You're not the right guy. And we need stronger men, stronger women in there. And we just need people who've got a backbone, who can say no to the money. It's like the drug cartels. I had a friend of mine, Sheriff Larry Deaver, who was killed. But he said he was worried about his life in advance. He said that the cartel said, we can give you silver, we can give you lead. It means they can make you rich, or they can put a bullet in your head. Well, he was killed. He had a drunk driving accident. 6-9 months later, whatever, was killed. Broken neck was really the cause of death. But when you have men who can't say no to the silver because they're afraid, or they're afraid that they're going to kidnap their child or murder their wife, they don't think about, well, I kept my son alive, but how many other people's kids are going to die because of your weakness?
Yeah.
And this is what politicians need to think about. And I don't see, let me just say this, I see very few who actually have that level of commitment to this cause and doing the right thing. But I look at our economy, I look at our culture, I look at everything's going to shit. It's because you cannot maintain a culture, you cannot maintain a country, you cannot maintain an economy that's based on theft, corruption, cheating, stealing, crime. Crime is a parasitical asset, and you don't create things, you don't create value, you don't create security, you don't create wealth for the population out of criminal activity. You just don't do it. I mean, example of the drug cartels. I mean, these guys running the drug cartels are making big money. They're tremendously rich, but they're bankrupting the rest of the country,
Yes.
of my country, of your country, of every country, because drugs are a parasitical activity.
Yeah.
They don't produce anything of value. Would you get a momentary euphoric high or something? Okay, great. That's wonderful. Do what you want. So, we need to examine everything we do. What works, what doesn't. And many of these things, when back was in 1970, 72, the U.S. did that Drug Enforcement Act, and it criminalized all these things, made it a federal jurisdiction and all this stuff. Have things gotten better? No, they've gotten worse. They should have named that the Price Protection Act for Drug Cartels of 1970, because all it did was ensure high prices by making these things universally illegal. We need to rethink everything we do and determine what efforts work, what efforts don't. Has the war on poverty decreased poverty? No, it's made more. Has the war on drugs ended drugs? No, it's made more. Has the war on terror ended terror? No, it's made more. These things don't work. These approaches, these universal one-size-fits-all. So what I'm advocating for is that we examine them, and we examine what they were intended to do, compare that to what they have actually done, then make a decision whether to continue funding it or to end it. And that's how every politician, every congressman, every senator, every city councilman should be thinking the same way about every project that they fund within their jurisdiction. It must be done. And if not, this country is lost. And it'll come back, but it's going to be a long, bloody struggle out of the hole you're going to be in.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. It's going to be a very not only long and hardship of struggle, but also it's on so many multiple levels. Time has passed. So much time has passed, and it's so many multiple levels. It's people are being so damaged, numbed down, stupefied, drugged down. Indoctrinated. It's on so many levels. This is the scary part of this. So where to begin? Yeah.
Well, you look at these drug addicts. Like Philadelphia is a great example. How these people are just, they're so high out of their mind that they're standing there like it's The Walking Dead. It's the TV show come to life. And so, are you ever going to be able to redeem these people? Can they go through rehab and come out of it? I don't think so. So what do you do with them? I mean, it's just like I said, all of these policies that have been accepted need to be examined for effectiveness. Did the war on drugs accomplish the goals of the war on drugs, or did it make them worse? It made them worse. And all of these things need to be examined line by line, program by program. You keep the stuff that works, you end the stuff that doesn't, and you come up with a new approach. Come up with something that might work. And then you evaluate that every year, every third year, every fifth year to make sure it's still on track and still functioning. And that way you could keep a lot of the corruption out. Did the food stamp program, I mean, come on, we had 42 million people on food stamps. Why? Then if we have 42 million people on food stamps, it means they're not working. Why do we have 55, 60 million illegal aliens here doing jobs Americans won't do because they're too comfortable on food stamps?
Yeah.
These things, they self-perpetuate, and you build constituencies around them, and that is the biggest failing of the form of government we have as a democratic republic. Because how do you affect change when people who benefit from what's dysfunctional block you?
The incentive.
No, they have an incentive to block you because they want to keep the food stamps coming.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go to work. I want my food stamps. I don't want to have to get a job to feed myself, feed my kids. Why would I do that? That's these are things. Like I said, we have no problems we can't fix. We just have to have a greater political will to fix them than those who are opposing us from fixing them.
Yeah, Mike, I wish we would have more people like you. I don't know, you call it political will, but I just call it courage, ethos, authenticity, honesty, self-reflection. I mean, all every I don't know, property that you can think of. So thank you again, not only for for doing this I mean, you always, most of the time you talk about people of America, but actually you're doing it also for the sake of humanity. So thank you again, and taking all this time, for me and for all these conversations.
Well, the pleasure is mine, and I want to thank all of your listeners for if you listen this far, thank you for giving us your time. See, that's really the gift that you give back is by watching this and investing your time to watch this discussion, to listen to us, and hopefully learn something. And like I said, if you put comments up with Davani, I'm sure he'll get them to me, because I like to read the comments. I use these to strengthen myself, because when someone's critical of me, I want to know what I could have done better. I use this for self-examination. So
really appreciate it, Mike. Hope to talk to you soon. All right. Thank you. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.